Kat, I'm excited to catch the recording that you put up on your Facebook, on the YouTube recording.
Oh yeah. It was a lot of fun. It's good. We haven't done a presentation about that topic before. So.
The YouTube recording.
Oh yeah.
It looks like we are live now, everyone.
We haven't done a presentation about that topic before.
The YouTube recording.
Oh yeah.
It looks like we are live now, everyone.
We haven't done a presentation about that topic before.
The YouTube recording.
Welcome everyone to AAC in the Cloud, June 24th. I'm excited to present this session. You are about to hear from Katrina Fessoff, Jen Rubenstein, and James Brinton. Their session is on eye gaze challenges in the home and community, and I'll let them take it away. Please enjoy your session. If you do have any questions, please put those into the Slack channel, and they will be happy to address those either throughout the presentation or at the end.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, everybody. Hello from Virginia here in the United States. I am James Brinton, speech and language pathologist. Today, we're going to be talking about eye gaze challenges in the home, in the community, challenges and solutions with our panel of participants here. Like I said, I'm an SLP with Eye Gaze Inc. I've been practicing for 11 years, and I have here with me Jen Rubenstein and Katerina Fasov. And a little bit about Eye Gaze Inc. before we start with introductions. We started in 1988. Our eye tracking pioneers, Dixon and Nancy Cleveland, our technical team. We were the first company to pair a full QWERTY keyboard with an eye tracking instrument. And we are here to support you, your clinics, your patients. And all three of us are full-time salaried employees of Eye Gaze Inc. We make the Eye Gaze Edge device, which you see behind me. You'll also see several picture examples using the Eye Gaze Edge in this discussion. We are definitely open to and believers in allowing patients to see all devices and have a thorough trial before recommendation of any AAC device. A little bit more about my background. I've been an SLP in the home health setting in skilled nursing facilities and schools. My role with Eye Gaze Inc. now is primarily clinical education, family education, speaking, and helping clinicians and end users ask the right questions before they select an Eye Gaze AAC device. So that's what I do. Jen, can you introduce yourself? You're muted, Jen.
I am. Yes, I am. Sorry about that. I am Jen Rubenstein. I am also a speech language pathologist. I spent over a decade in a subacute rehab facility in Washington, D.C., the final several years there as director of rehab. And I have also worked with adults in the home health setting. I am currently the speech pathologist who travels throughout the Mid-Atlantic region for Eye Gaze Inc.
And Kat.
Hi, my name is Katerina Fasov. I have a background in communication sciences and disorders and am now studying assistive technology engineering. And I have been working with individuals who communicate with eye tracking as their primary access method for about 5 years and primarily within the school setting and home setting with some teenagers. And now I am working with Eye Gaze in the Northern California region.
Thank you both. Our team, people who you do not see here, is comprised by engineers, nurses, eye tracking researchers, and we're eager to share our expertise and knowledge with you and your clinical needs, not only us three, but if you have eye gaze needs, tricky eye gaze questions, we would love to field those questions. So what we're going to do is introduce a little bit about the Eye Gaze Edge, ask a discussion chat question for you to think about, and drop your questions and thoughts into the chat box. And we're going to talk about common challenges and solutions that we see in the field while implementing Eye Gaze AAC. So here's the question. I would like you to think about this and drop something in the chat box if you have something to add or ask. So the question is, what most common challenges do you see when implementing eye gaze AAC with your patients? That's the question. Keep thinking about it and give us a note if you'd like. A little bit about the eye gaze edge. The eye gaze edge is used as a speech generating device for communication, allows people access to the internet, apps, and entertainment, all the functions of a computer, access to their smartphone for SMS texting and calling, an emergency alert system, as well as environmental control. And the eye gaze edge has several access methods that are available: direct selection with the touchscreen, a traditional mouse, a head mouse, a rollerball mouse, switches. Each eye gaze edge comes with a keyboard and trackpad, and of course, our eye trackers. The eye gaze edge includes several pieces. So it includes the eye gaze edge hardware that you see here, including the eye tracker, the communication software. It comes with mounts and accessories, a carrying case. Each eye gaze edge device is built personally for the end user. It comes with home delivery and setup and personalized instruction, as well as a warranty and lifetime advanced tech support from our team of experts. The eye gaze edge comes with one of two of our cameras. We have the Encore camera and the Prime camera. A unique thing about the eye gaze edge is these cameras are proprietary to our system. They are low fatigue, high accuracy, medical grade engineering masterpieces. The common reaction when people try these cameras are, wow, that is responsive. Wow, that is accurate. The nice thing is you point it at the person's face, their eyes, focus the lens, and they're in. What you'll be seeing here on the screen is our iWorld, our premium access point for eye gaze communicators to access the most popular features. iWorld, we have several symbol-based communication pages and entertainment communication features, and we can answer more questions about that on another discussion. iGaze Inc. Has our service delivery based on a client-centered model. So our communicator and our customer is the center of everything. Outside of them, we have us, the iGaze representative, the SLP who's evaluating, maybe family members or other support staff, all supporting this communicator. That includes training, clinical education from our iGaze team, and superior tech support for the life of the device, as long as it's needed, on weekends, on holiday mornings, whenever it's needed. When people call us, we answer. A few more visual examples of types of training. We go into school for evaluations, as you see here. We do virtual trainings across the globe with people who have received their iGaze Edge device. Here we have Jen and I on a virtual session with an SLP troubleshooting and getting through an evaluation in a patient's home during COVID. Here we have one of our ambassadors in a university providing education to grad students. And of course, the traditional go into the home and teach the family and support staff as they support their iGaze communicator. All right, so let's move on to the challenges and solutions. And Kat, thank you for monitoring the Slack channel for comments. What I would like to do is have a casual conversation between the three of us. So we'll have the challenge here. And if we could think about maybe a real life challenge where this was a challenge and the solution that we provided. So I'll start off each slide with just a basic introduction of the topic. So the first challenge and possible solution is around positioning and mounting of the iGaze device. We know that you can have a wonderful device that's the appropriate device, but if you don't have the appropriate mount, that device might not be any good and might be non-functional for that person. So getting the right position, the person's body, as well as having the right mount in the right position is a must-have for a successful AAC experience. I will give one quick example and then Jen or Kat hop in. We were working with a child with SMA, and this child did have to be positioned on their side this way for 1 hour and this way for another hour. They had another SGD, which was working okay, but the mounting system that was delivered with that other device was not appropriate to really get that angle that that child needed with that device. We met them at a Cure SMA conference, and they rolled up to our table and asked, well, will this work any better? And we just pointed it down, pointed the camera right at them, and got them in very, very quickly, and they ended up getting the device. I will show you that one unique thing about positioning with the eye gaze edge, you'll notice that this is our Encore camera, moves independent of the eye gaze screen. This is particularly advantageous for people with unique positioning needs. You get the screen in their visual field, and then you point the camera at any available eye that they have, and the eye gaze edge is good to go. So this is one advantage of, this system if you have someone with tricky positioning needs. Any other thoughts on positioning or mounting challenges that you've seen?
Yeah, I was working with someone with ALS, and she had a significant head drop. And the only way that she was comfortable was sitting with her head resting on her chest and almost looking straight down. She was then also having some challenges with that eyelid droopiness that we can sometimes see with ALS. And so the way that we ended up mounting the system was almost directly in her lap, but a little bit forward so that she would have to look up a little bit in order to make her eyes be a little bit wider so that it would track, because we needed at least half of her pupil to be visible. And so that's something that we ended up doing. The mounting, it took a little bit of time to actually get it in the exact right position, since she had other equipment that we needed to work around. But that was actually eventually was successful. It just took a little while.
Great.
Yeah, I'm thinking about when we're doing our demos and trying different devices with someone for the first time. There are a lot of different mounting options that we can look at for someone who is going to be purchasing a device. But when you're first doing a demo, the priority is to determine, is this something where I can accurately calibrate and track? And does the device do what I need it to do? And in order to do that, usually if we are traveling to someone's home, for instance, if I'm traveling somewhere, I try to bring at least 2 different mounting options. Sometimes those might not be the best and long-term solution, but we can try to be creative in that moment. For example, we have a table clamp, and the tables in a particular room we're in were just not a good option for holding a device securely. And so we were able to find a cabinet that we could open a door and just clamp onto the top, something that you could find for in that moment. Can we determine if this is going to be an appropriate option for this patient moving forward? And then once that's determined, we can say, okay, is this someone who uses a wheelchair? Is this someone who is using a desk setup? Is this someone who's going to be in a recliner or in a bed for most of the day? And then we can work together with this patient, with their family, with their SLP, even OTs and PTs as well, when you're talking about seating and positioning, to find the best solution for long-term use they'll be comfortable.
Yeah, and we have a comment here. It says, individual lying in supine with neck contracted into extension, very difficult to set up the eye gaze system. If I had a quick comment, and then you guys can go ahead and take over. My suggestion would be to sit down and think, where do you put the TV in relation to them when they're lying down and watching? That would be my first suggestion, to think about that.
I like that. Priorities, TV. That's so true. You may have gone into homes where your patient is in a wheelchair, and you're delivering an eye gaze system and getting the mount set up and everything, and you set it up in front of them, and the first thing they say is, well, I can't see my TV. Right. So, that's when we have to play with angles and moving things here or using mirrors. I was thinking about a woman that I saw. She had multiple systems atrophy. Her body positioning was really impacted with the course of her disease. So she was laying almost flat with her head highly propped up with pillows. That's what she found comfortable. And she also had a crick in her neck that was this way. They were trialing different eye gaze systems from various companies. And the family was setting another device right on her chest with the pillow right in front of her, but her natural kind of gaze area was down this way. So they were frustrated and saying, well, why can't we use this? What I like to analyze when I'm working with a patient is first, I find the plane of their face. So right now I'm sitting upright and I'm looking straight ahead. So the plane of my face is right here. We need to put the screen of the communication device parallel and really in their natural field of view, like you said, Kat, with the TV. Like if they're positioned where they're looking right at the TV naturally, that's comfortable for them. So this woman, her face was here. I had to move the device all the way down here, point the camera up at her one available eye, and she only had one available eye. Got her positioned well, got a clear image of the eye, and she used it just fine. And she ended up getting the eye gaze edge. So it is important, no matter what device we go into a home and they might have or that we might bring to them, is really get the field of that device right in their natural visual field as much as we can. If it's positioned incorrectly, it can make our communicators frustrated really quickly. You probably have seen that. One neat thing about the eye gaze edge is we have this on-screen eye image, so we know when the camera is pointed at that eye and when it's not. So having any sort of, even if you are working with a device who doesn't have that visual feedback, sometimes you'll see the support staff have marked with tape, like here's where the device goes once they're set up. So any sort of visual indication to get that device right in the sweet spot. Let's move on to the next challenge. Okay, so atypical eye conditions. Many of us who are maybe have typical eyes or younger and don't have any diagnoses, we just have typical eyes. So we can sit down at the ATIA conference in front of all the devices and use them just fine, perhaps. Many people who get to the point of needing eye gaze have some condition in their eye, history of eye surgery, something that's gone on. We need to be aware of this and ask during the pre-screening process, tell me about your eyes. We want to be very curious about the person's eyes. Learn about, have they had any eye surgeries? Do they have any known eye conditions? How is their visual acuity? Do they wear glasses? And if so, what type? So we want to ask these questions and make the vendors who come to our clinics or home aware of this. Hey, this is what's going on. How does your system work with that? There are several atypical eye conditions that can sometimes get in the way of a successful eye gaze communication experience. People with drooping eyelids, ptosis of the eyelids, nystagmus, strabismus, alternating strabismus, mydriasis, so the pupil size or asymmetric pupil shape. There's a short list of eye conditions that people who have had cataracts removed, sometimes that can be really tricky. So these are the things we just want to be curious about and ask about. And ask the vendor who you have coming in, hey, this person has drooping eyelids. Let's be aware of that and what can we do about it? Kat or Jen, do you have any things that come to mind as far as eye conditions that you'd like to share?
Do you want to go ahead, Jen?
I was just going to say one thing that I've noticed is when we talk about eye conditions and eye surgeries, there are certain types of procedures that are so common that a lot of times people don't even consider it surgery. So when we're talking about cataract removal, I've had that conversation with someone. Have you had a history of eye surgery? Oh, no. Oh, actually, I've had cataracts removed. So it's definitely good to kind of prod in that direction just to make sure we get a full picture. And then also an idea about glasses. If someone wears glasses, are they single vision? Do they wear glasses when they're using something that is at a computer distance? So sometimes you have someone that only wears reading glasses, but they don't wear their glasses at a computer. If you have someone that has bifocals or trifocals, can you find out, are they progressive lenses where it just looks like a smooth lens, or are they the hard line bifocal or trifocal that has a ridge etched in the glass itself?
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, so I have two comments that have come up in the chat. The first one is someone has said one of the challenges is a flickering countdown clock, even when environmental accommodations have been made. And what comes to mind with that is evaluating this person's eye conditions, because if they are looking at a specific spot and the system is not quite registering or registers it and then stops registering it, that's why you're going to get that flickering countdown clock. Another way that I was thinking of managing this perhaps is, instead of having that countdown clock, the circular clock, for example, because people tend to follow that with their eyes, is to just have a dot in the middle or the frame around, because that circular clock, many people unintentionally will follow it. And if they were looking in the middle and then they start to follow that, their gaze may leave the button, which would then cause this flickering. So one way around that would be to have it be in the center. Another thing is that it just may be too long for them to look at the key, especially if they do have some sort of eye condition, which would mean you could increase their activation speed to something quicker, and maybe set for there to be a momentary delay, or give them time to just practice that quicker activation. I'm thinking nystagmus, for example. If someone's eyes are jumping off of the keys quickly, that might be something to look at, really have them get some more information on their eye condition. Do you guys have any other comments about that specifically? Because there was another comment.
Go ahead with the comment. Yeah.
Okay. The other comment, there were a few more now, is, would the system work with those who have dilated pupils due to side effect of medications?
That's an excellent question. That's so, kudos to you, whoever asked that, for being aware that that may really impact. And I don't know if your patient is on baclofen. Baclofen can cause larger than normal pupils, which can get in the way of accurate eye tracking. Now, the Eye Gaze Edge has software accommodations for abnormally large and abnormally small pupils. It's no guarantee, so we would recommend, hey, let's give it a try. But in many cases, we've seen that people on baclofen who have different pupil sizes will do fine on the Eye Gaze Edge. I was going to say on a previous slide, one of the questions we got a while ago was, well, why does it just work so well with all these glasses and all these eyes? And the answer we kind of gave is, well, there's math behind that. But over our 30+ year history, we've collected tens of thousands of typical and atypical eyeball images to harvest mathematical and project mathematical data onto it. So that is really the forte of the Eye Gaze Edge, and one reason why, yes, it will work with someone who has large pupils because of a medication they're on, perhaps. I was going to say too, Jen, something you said reminded me of a patient that I saw. I was in the home for, they were trying out multiple devices, and they were trying out devices, and the client was saying, I just have a headache. And so I said, well, we better stop. Let's not continue. And I was asking them, tell me about your eyes. Have you had anything in the past, or anything you should tell me? And they said, no. Anyway, so I went home, and that family called me up about a week later, and they said, you know what? We forgot. 20 years ago, my spouse had an eye injury where shrapnel got in both eyes. He was an auto body worker. and he had to go in and have it surgically removed, the metal removed from his eye, but they got it out of one eye, but the other eye, there's little pieces of metal in there still. We forgot to tell you that. That was a big deal because he had tried out, now the eye gaze edge shone just on one eye, but he was trying out different eye trackers that were shining light into both eyes. And my hypothesis was if we gave him just a trial of an eye tracker that shone just in the unaffected eye, that perhaps he wouldn't get a headache. So I came back, we did that, no headache, and he ended up getting it. It was significant enough where he said, I can't use the other eye trackers because they gave me a headache. That's not going to work. So like you said, Jen, sometimes they don't even know or they don't remember. So our job is to be sleuths and detectives about the eyes.
Yeah, the other thing that I would say about medications and people not being aware is I had a situation where someone took a medication to help with their saliva, drying up their saliva right before trialing a system. And when you take a medication that dries up your saliva, it can also dry up your eyes. And so this individual was all of a sudden having a really hard time. Their eyes were irritated and dry, and it was not going well, and they didn't feel well. And we later found out, I got a call from his wife shortly after being like, oh yeah, he just took this medication. Could that be causing it? And so even keeping in mind something like that and having, if they are taking something that could dry their eyes out, is to have those eye drops on hand for them, or being mindful of their schedule, things like that. But that didn't even come into my head, of course, and they didn't think about it either.
Yeah.
That's so common. And that's even just with normal aging. As we age, our blink rate decreases. So your eyes are just not as moist as you get older. When you combine that with medications that might cause dry eyes, conditions like ALS that even further decrease the blink rate, it's extremely common for someone to have dry eyes that can impact your ability to accurately track with an eye tracker. Sometimes, especially if it's medical condition or medication related, someone might even have prescription eye drops. So that's something that someone can bring up with their doctor, especially if they're seeing an optometrist. A lot of folks that we work with who have ALS are working with a neural ophthalmologist that can prescribe that kind of thing. But a lot of times it's really just over-the-counter moistening eye drops.
Mm-hmm. I walked into a patient's room once. They were in a long-term care facility. I was going in for a demo of the eye gaze edge, and I walk in. It was a hot summer day. The person was leaned back and they had this huge fan blowing on them and the ceiling fan going. And I thought, uh-oh, this person's eyes are going to be dried out. And this is any eye gaze system that you use out in the market. The person's cornea needs to be moist, clean, and clear for them to have an accurate experience. If their eyes are dry, accuracy degrades. So when I saw that, I was like, uh-oh, they're going to have dry eyes. I'm so glad in my pre-screening, I asked the family, hey, do you have a routine of using eye drops? Oh, yes, we do. Okay. Before I come, can you use those eye drops and can you have them handy for our time together? Yes, we can. So it was no problem. But just be aware of the eyes. And you're right, Jen, eyes can dry out. So I'm in my 30s still, and in the afternoon, I get dry eyes. That just is my body, right? So we got to work with what we have. Let's move to the next slide.
Someone had a question about students with CVI, so I think that might fit in on that eye on eye conditions. So I'd like to touch on that.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have any better comments than I do. I think it's so individualized because CVI is less of an anatomical eye condition, but more of the neurology behind the neural pathways behind the eyes themselves. A student that I did work with had some characteristics of CVI, but over time with practice and using her eye tracking system, because that was her only option, she actually was able to almost retrain some of her neural pathways to be able to visually see more of those things and process more. So, just because someone isn't necessarily at the moment able to entirely access something doesn't mean that you have to say, okay, well, I guess they can't. Giving them a chance and really trying things out. But I don't know if you guys have any more CVI specific thoughts.
I know in the past we had a conversation about a student that had CVI. And again, I know that we've already touched on this, but it really is specific to the individual, how their CVI manifests and what that actually means for the particular person. For this particular student, color really had a big part to play. And this particular student was able to understand the icons on the screen, but visually they were drawn to red color. So even though they were not trying to select a red button, their eyes kept going to the red button and it would get selected inadvertently. So that's something that colors can be adjusted. Even if something needs to be grayscale, you can change the entire system into grayscale and just not use colors at all. So there are a lot of different options, and it really just depends on the specifics. But for that particular student, all it took was not having things red on the screen, and then you didn't have that distraction.
I was going to add, there are key steps in getting someone successfully into an eye gaze system. And aside from, well, first being positioning, next is getting them calibrated with a good enough calibration. So I'm thinking of a child with CVI we saw over the summer virtually because of COVID. From afar, the child was in the outpatient clinic with the SLP who knew that child well and who had been working with them. We were in virtually and saw that that child could get calibrated. We had to be very aware of the size and the color and what that calibration icon was doing. The SLP that was in person with that child was using the strategies that that child is used to, got them in and got the child into the eye gaze edge system. So again, it's knowing the child, knowing how that is manifest, knowing what you can change, and crossing your fingers and saying a little prayer for good luck or whatever. And using your clinical expertise. That's really what we're relying on, right? Good comment. Thank you for bringing up CVI. Oh, so this is a fun one. Using smart home devices and environmental control. Oh, so challenges. These things are, so many of us have either a Google Home or an Amazon Echo in our homes. We have apps on our phone that act as TV remotes. There's so many cool technologies out there. One thing I have seen as a challenge is the volume from the SGD not being loud enough when, say, if the fan is running or the TV is running because they've turned it on and they can't turn it off. So either turning up the volume or having the volume button there. Use the eye gaze edge comes with an external Bluetooth loudspeaker that can be placed anywhere in the room or the home. That is a nice option. So just getting creative. Not only as us, the clinicians, but sometimes the family has some really creative ideas they want to throw out. Getting creative is important. Having pages customized. So here we have a page for the Amazon Echo, and I had a patient that said, here's my 5 requests I make every day to my Alexa. Can you program those in as buttons? And I pulled the support staff over and showed them, here's how you do this, and now it's done. Customization can help with that.
Yeah, I think it gives people so much access to their environment. We use all sorts of environmental controls all the time, even just with the one Google Home that we have. And I know that I got mine at Costco for like $30. So that's something else to kind of, even suggest to the family if it seems like the person maybe wants a little bit more control of their environment, or even if they don't actually show that. We all almost take for granted at times the ability to walk into a room and turn the light on, check our phone for the weather in 10 seconds, things like that. Even if you kind of brainstorm outside of the box, what do I do in a day that could be accomplished with a smart home device? Even just those things, and going into a conversation with them, they may not even think that they care, but once they have the option, that may be something that they really enjoy being able to do.
I found that I've had to explain, sometimes families don't understand, well, how does their speech device talk to the Google Home? Like they don't understand just how that works. And I just say, this speaks the voice out loud and that device simply hears it. So aside from that auditory, there's not a connection that needs to be made. It's just the voice of your loved one. So just explaining that in a way that makes sense puts them at ease and excites them, because they're like, oh, okay, now they can use it like they were 2 months ago when they were speaking themselves. Yeah. I'm looking here at the time. There are a couple things I would love to cover. The last slide has some pictures of some cool creative solutions that our team has come up with. So I definitely want to show that. And then I would love to just kind of breeze through some of these other ones. And if any of them, we have maybe 4 or 5 other challenges. I want to go through them. And if any of us have like, oh, I got to tell this story, let's cover that. And if anyone out in the audience has a comment, like I really, really want to ask that, let's do that. And then if we have time, I have a real life question that was posed to me 3 days ago that I'm still thinking about what's the best solution. So maybe we could brainstorm as like a community. All right, so let's go through the rest of the challenges. I'll do this real quick, and then let's just speak to any of them that come to mind quickest. Okay, communicating in all areas of the home, in the bed, in the recliner, in the kitchen. Communication options and pages for patient self-advocacy, huge. Training the support staff, training the caregivers and the therapists, that can be really challenging. Oh, and then other challenges. All right, so of these 3, are there any that come to mind that you would like to speak about? Self-advocacy, all areas of the home, or staff training?
I would love to chat for just a moment on self-advocacy, because
Yes.
that's a huge topic in our household in general. And people often, when they aren't necessarily able to control their environment, have learned helplessness. And this learned helplessness is not even something that they can control. It's subconscious. People around them don't necessarily realize it, but they might say something and it's not completely understood. And they'll say, whatever, I don't care if you really understand me. And so offering to an individual ways to, we have the phrases and those phrase pages, those phrase button options that are say, I'm not finished yet, or hold on. Even if someone wouldn't have thought to say that originally, having that available right away kind of prompts them to be like, oh, wait, I can say that. I can tell you to wait before you ask me another question. So having those,
I'm going to push the button.
go for it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I am not quite finished with what I want to say.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so having those available where they can say that while not erasing anything that they've already written. I know we have a I'm still typing, please wait button as well, right on the keyboard. And so having those available, that's part of self-advocacy, is being able to control your environment. Self-advocacy is such a broad category. You could go into it in any, from any direction. But even just the basic, let me have a conversation, let me communicate, that is so important. And really, as a clinician, you can support these individuals and their families by emphasizing that.
Thank you. One feature that came to mind I love is under the medical communication page, we've made a button for the patient to manage their own medication, have their medication list and schedule in front of them, and give them the ability to request medication early. I'm thinking about my mother who had multiple medications, and she needed to do that. And she needed to have her long medication list in front of her. It was a lot to manage cognitively. So this is a great feature for self-advocacy. Okay, staff training or communicating in the home. We know that, Jen, you and I shared a patient that I visited this last month who had challenges with staff turnover and keeping the staff trained. I was really happy that the SLP who worked in that long-term care facility really had a plan to bring in new staff members and get them trained. We had to give her the training resources. We had to give strong modeling to the patient so the patient could understand that they can do this. Once they saw a model, and we guided them through practice. Training the staff requires multimodal education. Experience, watching us do it, trying it out themselves, reading the user manual, perhaps watching some training videos, whatever learning style will help them catch on and become empowered so they can learn these new skills, just like they'd have to learn, how to bake a cake or how to ride a motorcycle and do all the shifting. Any other complex skill requires a good method of educating that skill. Let's go to some pictures of practical solutions. So first of what has happened is there's a challenge that comes to us and the patient gives us feedback and says, hey, this isn't working. What can you do to help us break through this challenge? So I thought these were some fun examples. So first, during the pandemic this last year, we had to ship out a lot of eye gaze edge systems. So we've made this handy box to pack up everything. So when a patient family receives it, they can unpack it, use it, and then pack it all up and keep track of all the pieces. You see here also we have a quick plastic stand that just sets on a table. Some people really needed that solution, and hey, we designed it and made it. So a mounting solution. I love this picture. The eye gaze edge here is being used with a toe pointed and direct select on the screen. This person tried eye gaze, but they also wanted to try their toe, which they were using for another system that they had up until this point. So just allowing them to try out a device with multiple access methods when that makes sense for them. Here's a picture of a dark two-step keyboard, two-stroke keyboard. We designed several keyboards based on patient needs. And this one of the biggest pieces of feedback we've gotten over 3 decades from eye gaze communicators is turn down the light and keep our screens dark and simple. That philosophy, that design is written into every screen on the eye gaze edge. So here you see this two-stroke keyboard. It's black. It's designed in a way when you hit a key and go into the next page, there's nothing behind that initial key, so you don't accidentally double hit. So again, just a design based on someone's specific need. Kat, this is one of your patients that you were working with. On the screen, we have this eye image. This person had a chemical burn in their past that was impacting their eye. So what Kat did is make a whole screen that could allow this eye image to be nice and big, so we here in Virginia could analyze what is going on. So designing a screen to help analyze the data and provide a solution. I thought this was a really, really neat image. You can see this person is wearing their mask. So this is definitely a recent picture. People have said, hey, we want more games. So this is Sudoku. What I wanted to point out here is we had patients who were using their eye gaze edge device at night while they're in bed, and they turn it off or they make it go dark. They put the device to sleep so they could go to sleep, but their sleep cycle was disrupted. Now, each of us in our cell phones now has this nighttime mode where after 8 or 9 p.m., the blue light waves are filtered out because research has indicated that that can interrupt with our sleep cycles. So each eye gaze edge device continuously has the blue light waves filtered out, so this does not become a problem. Based on someone's challenge that they had, then they voiced it to us so we could make a solution. Here's an example of a visual we made. And Jen, I left this visual with your patient down here in Virginia when their caregiving staff, their support staff, nurses needed a visual of how to set up the system and get that clear eye image on the screen. So having a visual is a simple way to provide a solution if that's what's going to work for the end user and their support staff. If you would like to reach out to us, our website is eyegaze.com. Our phone number is 1-800-EYEGAZE. We would love to have a discussion with you as a clinician on specific eye gaze topics, whether that be tricky eyes, calibration, language systems that you're seeing, more specifically about the eye gaze edge. Our strength is focusing on the individual, their unique eyes, and developing a solution for them. So feel free to reach out to us. In a couple hours at 3 p.m., I'm providing a deeper look at iWorld and some of our mindfulness page sets that are newly designed in there. So Kat or Jen, do you have any other comments or thoughts? Or Kat, is there anything else in the chat box?
Someone had asked what operating system does the iGaze Edge use? And I answered it in the chat, but just to verbally answer as well, we use Windows 10, but with iGaze Connect, you can control any operating system, another device, a phone, a computer, whatever operating system that allows you essentially to use the iGaze Edge as an external keyboard and mouse. So if you have more questions about that, we're more than happy to answer those.
Sure. We see people using that iGaze Connect and the iGaze Edge links for high-level computer activities, working, software manipulation, design, music editing on their MacBook, their Linux system. A lot of people here in the DC area who are issued a government-issued laptop they need to have access to. Great. Any other questions or comments before we sign off?
I don't believe I see anything else in the chat, but we can give it just a few moments.
Sure.
I appreciate everyone's comments and participation in the chat. It's wonderful.
Great. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Jen, for your stories. And we'll give just a moment. And if nothing else comes our way in the chat box, it's been lovely to spend time with you. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.